The desert sand felt like hot ashes on the bottom of Endo's feet as he tried to find patches of shade from the nearby rocks and plants. Supplies were running low and the town of Brink was still a few days away. With all the warring factions and marauders in the land, Endo found it amusing that thirst would kill him before anyone else did. Picturing an oasis in his mind, he could see a pond of water glistening as the sunlight hit its surface. Endo shook his head and his newly imagined oasis disappeared with the wind. A large group of holy servants could be seen in the distance directly on the course he set for himself. Corpses could be seen scattered all over the sand as they began to walk away in their standard formation. It appeared to Endo that the bandits tried to overtake them with a surprise attack, which had failed miserably. Endo began making his way towards the corpses of the bandits as the holy servants continued their course. The last thing he needed was a confrontation, Endo thought. On one of the corpses, Endo noticed a large blade which would be a definite upgrade to his current fighting stick. The horse chopper, they called it, was a blade with a curved shape. Its edge was larger, which made it a more defensible weapon than its counterparts. Considering that Endo had no real training in sword fighting, a more defensible blade wouldn't hurt. Some small food rations were found on a larger-bodied man. Figures, Endo thought, smiling as he filled his pockets full. The last corpse Endo checked was wearing a full helmet, which would sell for quite a bit of credits. There were plenty of other items that could have been looted and sold, but without a backpack, it was hopeless for Endo to carry everything. It had been a few days of traveling and Endo was starting to get very tired. The desert is not a safe place to sleep out in the open. Lighting a fire was out of the question, as any roaming marauders traveling during the night would have seen it from afar. There were other things that came out to hunt at night that kept Endo from sleeping. Scorpions were relatively small compared to rattlesnakes, but they blended in with the night. They could crawl on him and he wouldn't even feel them until it was too late. It was a very hot day and Endo was struggling to put one foot in front of the other from the lack of sleep the past few nights. As Endo made his way to the top of a large sand dune, he could see the city of Brink in the distance. Only a little further to go, he thought, limping his way towards the city. Endo could barely stand by the time he approached the front gates, his arms and legs aching from traveling. The town of Brink was bustling with life. As part of the United City, some say it was a center hub for all trading in the land. Merchants could be heard offering their wares for sale while the townsfolk bartered with them for the best deal. An army of guards stood by the main gate, while a smaller force patrolled the inner walls, keeping the town safe. You'd have to be a fool to assault this town, he pondered. Endo headed towards the inn on the southwest side of town. He remembered staying at it once before on one of his previous trips. The innkeeper eyed Endo up and down as he entered through the front door. "You look like you're about to fall over," the innkeeper said. Endo nodded in approval. "You're quite right about that. How much for a room?" 100 cats for the night, the innkeeper said. Endo dug his hand into his pockets and pulled out all the Catan credits he had. "Here you go," Endo said, handing the credits to the innkeeper. The innkeeper smiled. "Take any bed you want and enjoy your stay." Endo didn't mind the hostel-style inn where every bed was in view of each other. Rest was the most important thing he needed, and he doubted that anyone would be coming by during the day. Endo could feel the sun on his eyes as he woke the next morning. Although feeling rested, his body still ached from travel. No time to waste, he thought, packing up his things and exiting the inn through the front door. The town of Brink began to disappear behind him as he headed down the mountain slope with his destination set. The village of Fisher, Endo's home, was a day's walk to the west. The thought of seeing his friends and family brought a smile to his face, even if he was about to ruin his homecoming with bad news. An image of Akuma appeared in his mind, smiling down on him, almost as if he was taunting him. Fear began to rush through Endo as he shook the image out of his head and started to run towards home. Climbing the last dune that overlooked the village was always the most difficult one due to its vertical inclination. Nearing the top of the slope, Endo began to notice smoke rising in the distance. He could feel the weight of each footstep almost as if they were keeping him from reaching the top and discovering what was on the other side. As Endo reached the top of the dune, he suddenly stopped, not believing in what his eyes were seeing. "No!" Endo screamed, tears streaming down his face, watching in horror as a fire engulfed his entire village. Part of the main wall appeared to be destroyed, with most of the buildings set on fire. "I am too late," Endo sobbed, watching the buildings burn and the crop fields dissolve into ash. The roof of the largest building in the village suddenly exploded into pieces, exposing a bright flash of light, causing him to squint his eyes to be able to see. Endo couldn't make out if anyone was alive from his current distance, but he had to know for sure. Pulling himself together and holding back his anguish of emotions, he began to run down the dune towards the village. Endo could smell oil mixed in with charcoal coming from the flames as he arrived at the entrance to the village. Behind the wall, he noticed a few dead bodies of people from his village lying on the ground. The rest of the villagers must have been swallowed by the flames, he thought. Endo approached one of the villagers who he recognized and knelt down to inspect her wounds. It appeared that the corroded artery was cut in her neck, causing the woman to bleed to death in a matter of seconds. It was a popular way to kill for those who wanted to execute someone. No ordinary bandit would have done this, Endo thought. "This is Akuma's doing, I'm sure of it," Endo cried, unable to hold back the ferocity of his emotions any longer. "I vow that one day you will all be avenged." The walk back up the giant dune overlooking the village was difficult. Everything he ever knew and loved was now behind him, burning as if it had never even existed. He was too late to save his village, and the only thing driving him was his newly formed quest for vengeance. He made a promise to the deceased inhabitants of his village that Akuma and those following him would pay for what they have done. It was an oath he planned to keep.